Donald Trump just paused all military aid going to Ukraine as his relationship with Zelensky continues to deteriorate. Zelensky's White House stunt backfires tremendously as Zelensky makes it clear that he is not serious about pursuing peace. As long as the United States continue to send military aid to Ukraine, Zelensky has no reason to seek peace because the war allows them to cancel elections and maintain power. The Trump administration understands this. So now that Zelensky made it clear that he's not serious about peace, they are now pulling aid funding. Because if you can't fight a war without military assistance from another country, you should perhaps try to pursue peace. The Trump administration even said that aid will resume if Zelensky makes it clear that he is receptive to peace talks with Russia. Europe, panicking at the thought of peace, has promised to pick up the slack from the United States and boost their military spending and Ukraine aid so they can continue their conflict with Russia.
You serious?
Bro, Ukraine couldn't defeat Russia with the United States assistance. So why does Europe believe that their contribution will mean anything? The only thing Europe is accomplishing is decreasing the quality of life for their people, as NATO leaders call for cuts in healthcare and social spending so they can increase their military budgets. Europe is a death code that is willing to plunge the world into World War III and possibly nuclear war because they are addicted with never-ending conflict and never-ending war.
What's poppin'? My friends, my family, man, there's so much going on, man. Jesus Christ. I said before, man, I had to admit the Trump administration has been way funnier than I thought it was going to be. So I'm glad I'm able to show you guys this hotspot. I have been paying attention. I didn't have a Gorilla Pod on tomorrow. There's so much to break down. I also want to break down how Trump is enabling terrorism in the West Bank. So Trump is not this anti-imperialist, and he's advocating for funding NATO more, and we will be diving into this. MAGA has shown itself to be completely fraudulent. They're now cracking down on free speech. You know what I mean? RFK Jr., the first thing this motherfucker did was take office and crack down on free speech on behalf of Israel. First thing he did. That's exactly what we warn people about. So trust me, there's a lot to critique and a lot to talk about. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But Trump pausing weapon shipments and him advocating aggressively for not just peace with Ukraine, but normalization with Russia is undeniably a good thing. So we'll talk about that more tomorrow. Today we have a special episode that was much anticipated, to say the least, man. For people who actually watch the channel, you know what I mean? It's not anything new. We had Eddie Liger and Noah on before, a part of the American Communist Party, who've been doing a lot of work, man. And I know a lot of people have critiques of the ACP, but I truly believe, and this is what I'm interested in. You know what I mean? I'm interested, and I think the most important thing right now as a Marxist, looking at the current reality that we're in, is that we need to form an anti-Zionist movement. Because as Marxists and communists, our first goal is to take out the empire, to be anti-imperialist. Because imperialism is a tool in the wing of capitalism. Right now, Zionism is the core wing of the empire. And it's the weak link of the empire. We are seeing the working class continue to question the support for Israel. We're seeing the global majority reject the Zionist crimes, the Zionist control of states. So I am a strategist. I'm not saying my strategy is right. I'm just saying that we are facing an empire, the likes that we never ever seen before, my friends. No theory can teach us how to overthrow the current combined NATO imperialist structure. We have the task that no working class has ever had to deal with, the most well-armed ruling class, the most morally bankrupt ruling class of all time that would easily genocide any resistance. So on the light of that, seeing what we're up against, knowing that the global majority is anti-Zionist and tired of the United States empire, my strategy as a Marxist, which I'm down to debate, which is why we have open conversations, whether I'm right or wrong, whether my guess is right or wrong. My strategy is to form an anti-Zionist, anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist movement. And that is my only litmus test, my friends. You guys understand the global majority. When you look at communists in Brazil who support Lula, when you look at many African leftists, a lot of people, the world is generally socially conservative, my friends. So I know people are uncomfortable with ACP and some of their socially conservative takes, but the global majority is socially conservative. So are United States leftists plan to cancel the majority of the global working class? I think in our strategy should be communication, conversation with each other, understanding with each other, because that's how we come closer. That's how we iron out the kinks. Whenever someone has a bad idea, you fix that with understanding. I live in Missouri, and a lot of people who are upset over conversations with other people they have political disagreements with, you notice that they tend to be in blue states. The people that I would never talk to a conservative. I would never talk to. They live in New York, surrounded by liberals. I always check their profile. It never fails. It always some fucking pink hair motherfucker from California. They're like, how dare you talk to a homophobe? Like, motherfucker, I live in Missouri. 1 out of 4 people. 1 out of 3 people is homophobic here. I know people in my family that has extremely suspect views, especially on trans issues. Are you telling me that I should cancel people in my family? I had a family get together where my cousin said some cringe shit about trans people and gender bathrooms and shit. Like, are we supposed to cancel? Is that the strategy of the failed U.S. left? Is to cancel anyone who have disagreements instead of having a conversation? RBN rejects that, my friends. The history of the Black Panthers, we reject that. Black radicals reject that. We are the minority. We are not privileged enough. White leftists, we are not privileged enough to dictate who we talk to cancel people, because I'm blacklisted. When have you guys seen me on any of these big shows? Conservatives are afraid to talk to me. The last time I talked to a conservative was on the Hill with Robbie Schwab, debating about communism, destroyed him. And then I was immediately put on the blacklist. What position are we in to play as gatekeepers, my friends? What we need to be doing as Marxists, the people who are shut out of the conversation, is to reach everybody. To support the potential and believe in the potential of the working class. Meaning if someone in the working class has suspect views that you disagree with, that you can reach them because you can appeal to their material reality and to understand that we need them in this anti-imperialist struggle. These principles is why I reject the cancel culture from ineffectual left Twitter irrelevant users, the people who are upset about this. Because I will have conversations. I will talk to anybody. You know what I mean? People got to tell me beyond Jimmy. People got to tell me beyond George Galloway. I will talk to anybody who will listen to a message about class warfare, and we should do the same. Now, that's my intro. I won't bring my guests. I didn't plan on going that long. We have friends of the show. Once again, if you've been on RBN before, it'd be shocking because we had Eddie and Noah on. The only difference is they now have the American Communist Party. So welcome to RBN once again, Eddie and Noah. Look forward to chatting with you guys. I'm gonna pass to you guys, and whoever want to go first, feel free, because you guys founded Midwestern Marks. Once again, we had you guys on many times before, so this is not like this shouldn't be shocking to anyone who actually follow my work. You know what I mean? For people who are not familiar, for the people who think that ACP is misled, what would you guys define as the goal and why you guys started the American Communist Party to start off with?
Yeah, that's your intro there was really great. It's a good question. I mean, the main reason is that we needed a communist party in this country. We're at an objectively revolutionary time where, the vast majority of our country doesn't trust the media, distrusts the government, hates the government, hates the financial institutions and corporations that lord over them. But there's no real vehicle to get organized because you have parties like CPUSA that have made themselves an appendage to the Democrats, at least no strictly Marxist-Leninist vehicle, or there wasn't. And what that's led to, is a lot of that anti-establishment energy being filtered into the Bernie campaign, which, resulted in a whole lot of nothing. And then a lot of the anti-establishment energy on the right going towards MAGA and Trump. So we felt there was a need or a vacuum in this country for a Marxist-Leninist party, and we had felt that for a long time. But it took a while for the conditions to actually be right to start a party, to get the right people together to the point where we could actually run a party, which is, there's a lot of work involved with it. There's, almost daily meetings and organizing and keeping touch with rank and file members in different chapters. So, we understood the gravity of it and didn't do it until we're ready. Now, when it comes to, some of the things people have said about us, like the socially conservative positions, I'm not even a socially conservative person. I mean, maybe compared to like some insane.
I was told you was a homophobe. I was told. So that's shocking to hear, man. That's weird. That's weird to hear. Almost like people don't want to have the conversation because they don't want to hear you clarify that. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. And I've been in favor of gay people being allowed to get married and having rights and protections my entire life. But, like you said, the main goal of a Marxist-Leninist party is anti-imperialism and advancing the class struggle. And if you go to acp.us and read the party program, you won't see anything about, LGBTQ issues or social issues. What you'll find are common sense proposals for how to improve people's lives economically, and for dismantling the U.S. empire. Now, our party doesn't discriminate. We have a position of tolerance when it comes to social issues. So there are people in our party who have, more conservative social leanings. There are people in our party who have more liberal social leanings. We don't discriminate on that so long as you're willing to fight against imperialism and to advance the class struggle. And that's where a lot of the smears come from. Is either, a lot of them are just straight up lies. Like a lot of tweets have just been straight up fabricated, but people will point to one member of the party who said something on Twitter 3 years ago that they found, that was controversial, and they'll say this is what the party's all about.
People are not as relevant as they believe they are. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's a liberal bullshit argument where they say, Nick, you shouldn't platform those people. Don't you know they're fascist? Why? Because you say so? Like, I'd rather make the decision myself. You know what I mean? I'd rather invite you on. I'm like, man, this motherfucker's saying some fascist ass shit. I would be calling you. I'm like, man, this man Eddie, he is some crazy ass white. I will call you out on the spot. So my personal position is I'd rather invite you guys on, and if you guys say some such shit, we can repeat it, we can duke it out then. But I don't understand the whole thing like you can't platform this person. That sounds like liberal bullshit. Like 100% to me. When everyone who said that, I mean, like, okay, that guy's a liberal. You're against conversation. I'm against play. You shouldn't platform this person. That's the same mentality that CNN has. That's why they don't platform leftists. They say you shouldn't platform people who demonstrate. You guys have the same ideology as CNN. As they meant, you shouldn't platform this. You shouldn't platform Jimmy. You shouldn't platform this. I'll platform what the fuck I want. You know what I mean? It's just that sounds like liberal bullshit, doesn't it? And I would die on that hill.
You know what I always find funny is they seem to always want to tell us what to do with our things.
Yeah,
right? Like who are they? Like, I don't even know you. What are you telling me what to put on Midwestern Marks? No, we'll put what we want to put on it, right? If you think you have all these great ideas, go build your own thing. And if it's better than us, guess what? We'll be forced to notice, right?
Yeah, that's why. And these are the people I want to talk to, the people who are actually on the ground activists. And it's always these people with like anime profile pictures, people who never put their face out there. You know what I mean? It's always these fake accounts. They're always talking shit. Man, RBN, you think you ain't shit, Nick? You think you're a Fred Hampton leftist? You ain't shit. Oh, the ACP, they ain't shit. Y'all niggas ain't shit. They're not even doing anything. They're just on Twitter with anime profile pictures with 200 followers, and they just critiquing people who are actually doing shit. That's why, and I have disdain towards that. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that we're perfect. We're not above criticism. But if you're going to critique other people and you're going to claim that you're a socialist and communist, you need your own organization. What are you doing? Why, instead of picking apart and decrying everyone as imperfect? It sounds like liberal bullshit, but go ahead, Eddie.
No, it absolutely is. Yeah, it's, I mean, there's a whole anti-ACP Discord chat now, of people who's like they're the only thing that binds them together ideologically is that they hate the ACP and they want to destroy the ACP. And it's like, imagine if you guys put this energy towards organizing your community or organizing your workplace. That's what we want.
And right. Guys, you understand that when people are like, why Nick, why do you want to have the ACP on? Because I see that you guys are doing organizing. You know, and I would love to see you guys talk more about that with what you guys are actually doing, because that caught my attention. Obviously, you guys been visiting and meeting with resistance groups all over the world, which I have no idea how you guys are pulling that off. You know what I mean? But it's still interesting to see that. You know what I mean? I'd rather have conversations with people actually doing things, flawed or not. You know what I mean? And we can talk, we can discuss and brainstorm, because that's how we got started. And that's why if you're confused, that's why I'm skeptical of all the smears, because I've been through it. Like the same thing you guys see ACP went through is the same fucking thing we went through. Remember all the Karens hitting up Fred Hampton Jr.? Hey, Fred Hampton Jr., you shouldn't trust those motherfuckers over there. They're right-wing grifters. Hey, don't you know Nick is a grifter? Hey, and these motherfuckers were smearing us too. I see the same people who have like ACP derangement syndrome. They was the same people going after me when we started. So there's like these wave of people who are do-nothings, who spend their time attacking anyone who tries. You know, like anyone, like if you try to start a communist organization, they're gonna pick you apart. If you try, oh look at Nick, he thinks he's a fucking citizen journalist. He thinks he's a shit. Who the fuck that nigga think he is? And they try to take you apart. And then people wonder why people are afraid and intimidated to enter the failed U.S. left Marxist spaces, because we are infiltrated by a ton of motherfucking wreckers who try to make being a leftist as stressful as possible. Meanwhile, in RBN, we advocate for communication. I'm blessed to have people from all around the world. We learn, we talk to people, we disagree, we laugh to each other. And I find myself blessed to that. That's why I find it's weird to me when people oppose the simple idea of people talking to each other. But with that said, because I want to nail you down on key positions, because one of the things that is a key litmus test for me, because I have mentioned that Zionism is the fight of our lifetime. You know, and I feel like we should be forming an anti-Zionist movement. And if you are a Zionist, I'm not interested to talk to you. You know what I mean? I'm literally just not. I'm not ever interested in talking to Zion. I'm just not interested. If you're anti-Zionist, I am. So I'll mention how I'm like, man, I'm down to have the ACP on, because I noticed that you guys do a lot of work combating Israel. Then I had someone to say, hey, don't you know that the ACP is actually secretly Zionist? I was like, what? So maybe I should ask you guys. This is why I'd rather have people on, because what that person tried to do was to convince me that you guys were secret Zionists instead of just asking you guys. So I would love to hear what your position is on imperialism, Zionism, overall, for people who may not know your guys' platform.
Yeah, our position is the same as the resistance against Zionism, the actual resistance, not like the liberals who like to use Palestine as like a virtue signal, but the actual resistance against Zionism in the Middle East that is materially resisting Zionism. And their position is that the state of Israel is an illegitimate state, a state that's rooted in the idea of Jewish supremacy in the Arab world, and is rooted in ethno-nationalism, that is just a proxy of the U.S. empire, an arm of Western imperialism in the Arab world, basically an unsinkable air carrier for the U.S. military to push whatever they want. We see this all the time. Israel was involved with the overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya. They were obviously involved with the overthrow of Assad in Syria. The U.S. and Israel's interests overlap in that region often. And Israel couldn't exist without the financial support that they get from the U.S. So from an American perspective, we support cutting off all funding and support for Israel, and even putting sanctions on Israel. And I'm not we at the ACP and me myself are not liberal two-state solutioners either. There can't be a two-state solution. There can't be a two-state.
Do you condemn Hamas?
No, fuck no.
So we supposed to hate each other? Like, I don't understand.
We have people.
I see white people everywhere. Sorry if I offend you guys, but I see white people everywhere condemning Hamas, and we got a group of white people who don't condemn Hamas, and we're not supposed to talk. Yeah, see how ridiculous it sounds to me. Like I find a gem. I find the few white people who don't condemn Hamas, and we're supposed to be enemies. How does that make sense?
And not just that, we have two people that have interviewed Hamas.
Yeah, Halali, and
getting their view out there without all of the lies the ruling class tries to tell us about them, right?
At great risk to their health, because the State Department was all over that. They're angry about it, obviously.
I mean, can I go off for 1 minute?
Go ahead, Noah.
Look, we're coming out of a really, really dark period these last couple years. And it seems like the whole cancel culture, liberals, blah, 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 that used to try to call themselves left wing in our country are very, very angry that are people that are real getting organized now. And I consider you guys like a vital part of this new thing that's happening. And I think it's not a coincidence that these people are trying to turn us against each other. I really don't. I think the whole reason they've changed nothing over the past few decades is because that's what they exist to do, fight against each other and get nothing done. And that we won't do that, that we refuse to fall into that and instead get to the, sometimes tedious business of organizing drives them insane.
So also curious, because we have done many panels on reparations. I would love to hear the ACP's position on reparations as well. Eddie, Noah, what are you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know if it's something in our program specifically. I know Haas had an interesting conversation about it with Tariq Nasheed, who's a little bit out there, but he's got some interesting ideas. Where Haas was basically saying, like, yeah, reparations could be incorporated within, a broader policy of lifting up working class people in general, which our program would do. And part of the program talks about the formation of a real American civilization. And part of course, we know the history of our civilization is the hyper exploitation and overt oppression of Black people. So, the unification of that American civilization involves overcoming a lot of those historical prejudices and historical, weights that economic weights or political weights that are on the shoulders of Black people. So I don't know if we have anything specific about reparations in our program, but I know the feeling of the leadership of the party is favorable towards it.
Noah, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, it's a really, like, personally, it's a really easy one. Like, yes, of course, pro reparations. I think it's interesting that so many white people on the left have a different view. Like, even Alex Jones gets this one right.
Really?
Like, Alex Jones himself was going like, look, you can get all white people on board for reparations. Just tell them it's going to come from these giant corporations that profited off of literal slavery. And you got everybody on board because everybody hates those corporations anyway. You're then uniting people rather than dividing them. And that's Alex Jones. It's wild to me. But for like my personal theory that I'm sort of been coming up with over the last few years, I call it the American trajectory, right? The history of how Americans become America, or American rather. And for me, the Black working class is essential in this because it leads the entire country forward at two revolutionary moments so far, at the end of the Civil War and into Reconstruction, forcing the issue of abolition and destroying that institution forever. And then again, in the political revolution that we call the Civil Rights Movement, right? Which again leaves Jim Crow in this old institution in history forever and is like a sort of nodal point at becoming and developing into like a people, the American people. And so for me, it's a very simple question of correcting problems that have existed and moving forward pragmatically.
Yeah, and as a Marxist, and this is how I discuss it. You guys understand that we are talking about the greatest act of class warfare and redistribution of wealth we have ever seen with reparations. So, do you think that if you're a poor white person, do you think you benefited and you will be paying for reparations? You know who will be paying for the reparations? The people who stolen labor. And as Marxists, aren't we supposed to protect the labor value of the working class? So what happened to Black Americans and enslaved Americans was the greatest heist. And you can say that generally with slavery, but especially with chattel slavery in America, one of the greatest heights of the working class of all time. Literally, all the profits, there's no payment to labor, go directly from the ruling class, the white ruling class who benefit from this, who were able to build generational wealth. And between that redlining civil asset forfeiture, we've seen the capitalist class stole the labor value of the black working class. This is direct class warfare. There is no better way to wage class war than forcing the slave owners and forcing people who benefit from this broken society to pay the black working class back. Because if you're poor and white, you think you benefit from this. Why the hell are you poor and white? So what do you guys think happened if you actually understand progressive economics? What happens when the working class, especially the poor black working class, get income and generational wealth that was stolen from them? They then will invest that into businesses, including white businesses that are owned in the area. Hell, maybe many black businesses gets opened up and they hire white workers and help provide for them. So the poor white working class only benefit from reparation. I'm talking about the greatest form of class warfare of all time. Wealth distribution on an epic level, which is why it's clear to me why capitalists don't support it. You know what I mean? Because they support exploiting labor. Capitalism can't exist without slavery. You know what I mean? So of course they would be against it. That's why it's always shocking to me when I see white leftists and other people who oppose it when it's directly related to class struggle. So that's my rant. If you want to chime in, feel free. I have to rant on that. You know what I mean?
There's a reason the capitalist class too tries to use it as a wedge issue, and they, because of course they love to divide us by race. So they tell the white working class, look, black people just want to be given handouts, and it plays on the old welfare queen stereotype, and it says, you're going to be left poor, and black people are going to be living in mansions. That's how they portray reparations. But like I said, reparations would be done within the context, at least in, if the ACP was to take power, within the context of redistributing wealth and land to everybody and giving everybody more opportunities and more abilities to actually get active in the economy. All it is living up to the promise of Reconstruction that was never fulfilled, that we're going to give you land and economic opportunity and benefits because those were stripped from you and your ancestors for many years. And of course, there's Jim Crow followed slavery, and we had a literal apartheid state for a long time. And even once Jim Crow ended, you have the prison industrial complex and the CIA literally helping the Contras funnel crack cocaine into black neighborhoods. Like, it's a way to, at least in some ways, alleviate, a horrific historical evil and unite us as one American people, no longer divided by these arbitrary categories.
Yeah, well, I that was very well said, and I appreciate the sentiment. The only pushback that some reparation activists will give is that reparation is a debt owed. So I appreciate and I 100% support the idea of reallocating wealth to the working class in general, but that debt owed must be paid as well. But obviously that's a great sentiment, though. I want to bring Q in. We have a banger today, man. My friend Q hit me up when we invited the American Communist Party. Like, bro, I definitely want to join. So I'm interested in getting Q. This is an RBN Marxist roundtable in a way. So it's great to have Q Anthony Ali on. We were just doing general discussion. I had a rant earlier about the cancel culture, antisocial left that's upset that this conversation is even happening. Like the antisocial weed.
Oh,
anime,
Nick, you sure you're not on the CIA payroll, bro? You sure you're not taking money from the Ford Foundation and USAID? Hey, you're not taking money from the National Endowment for Democracy to have a conversation with people on your own channel? How dare you?
Can I say one thing? How funny it is! I want to read this weird fan fiction that they've been writing about the ACP lately. Because one day we're broke and we're about to be destroyed. Then the next day we're funded by the federal government. Then the next day we're funded by Russia. Then the next day we're funded by China. Then we're back to being broke again. Like, I don't like. I'm looking for a plot.
It's really fucked up because a lot of people say, "Well, you can't have ACP on their feds." Like, y'all just fed jacking people, like just accusing people of being. You got to understand. Let
me ask you something.
Go, Q.
If Nick, if you were to interview Bernie Sanders, if you were to interview Jasmine Crockett, if you were to interview Ro Khanna, people who literally work for the federal government, if you were to interview, let's say, somebody who used to work for, I mean, there's no one used to work for, but you get the idea. Somebody who like used to work for the FBI and is now like a conscientious dissenter. Somebody who used to work for the military. So would people be giving you this much shit? No,
I had Ro
absolutely
Connell on, a Democrat, a genocide
I know.
supporter, and there was no anger. But
No,
to your
because
point,
by the way.
no, it's a cope. Here's the thing. And you know what? I'm guilty of this myself a little bit, but it's mostly jokes. And probably my issue over the last couple of years is because you know what happened with me and the Communist Party of Canada and how disenchanted I got with party structures because of that shit. So I kind of disengaged from almost everything, and everything just became a joke to me because it really was. But my issue was in doing that. When I was just very loose with the whole like Fed talk. But for me, it was all jokes because it's like, well, nothing really means anything. But I see that people are really starting to take this shit serious. With no evidence whatsoever, they'll just claim that X, Y, and Z group are feds. Why? Because they don't like them. Now, if there's some aspect of the ACP that I disagree with, I'll have a conversation with ACP members and say, well, this is what I disagree with you about. Eddie, you and I have had conversations about the shit that I disagree with, right, regarding the ACP. No, I don't think that you and I have ever really had a conversation. Like, we've interacted, but we haven't really had conversations. I've had conversations with Haas. I've had conversations with Jackson. I've made my points of disagreement very clear. We don't really need to get into that shit because, I'm sorry, there is no leftist organization in the United States right now. No organized left to speak of. And to the extent that there is one, the feds don't have to do shit because as a collectively in the West, we are so disorganized that they don't have to do anything to us.
Yeah.
They don't have to infiltrate organizations. They don't have to cause like chaos and discord among these disparate groups because we already do that well enough to each other as it is. Where it comes to parties that shelter sex pests and sex harassers and literal rapists in their organizations, where it comes to a decentralization of organizations where one group of people in one region of the country is saying one thing and then somebody's saying the complete opposite in another region. You have, like, for example, like the New York DSA that's been just like cycling the exact same conversation on Zionism for the last since basically Operation Protective Edge. And that's been going on, that was like 9 years ago. They've been going over that shit for a solid decade now. There's no need for the feds to involve themselves because collectively we do a good enough job disorganizing ourselves that we're already doing the work for them. So when it comes down to brass tacks, what is it that we actually disagree on? Have an adult conversation about that. Get that Fed shit out of your mouth for a second and talk to people about what it is that you actually disagree about. Be an adult.
Yeah, and a lot of people treat organizing like high school. That's where they peaked. They missed high school. So when they got into political organizing, they treat it like high school. You got to be in little cliques. Hey, man, I don't like this person. How dare you have him on your show? And Q, I was talking about this earlier. I would like your thought on it because they say, Nick, you can't platform these people. They're fascists because I'm supposed to take their word for it instead of investigate for myself. That's what a true leftist is supposed to do, apparently. Just take people. So instead of bringing them on, they said, Nick, you're not supposed to platform them. To me, that sounds like liberal bullshit. You know what I mean? And I would love to, and I had Jackson Hinkle on, and there was so much backlash, and it was in the conversation about me pushing back. Like, it was mostly very contentious, and there was people that was just sad, and me just doing that. And that's why I see it was obvious a coordinated attempt by the people who don't want best for the left to get people to factionalize themselves, and the people who want the left to be weak in the United States, they're more than happy to do that. They're more than happy to say, you can't talk to this person, we're going to cancel this person, we're going to put silos and blacklists, like as if RBN is in the position to blacklist people. You shouldn't have HB. I'm supposed to blacklist them, join the corporate media and blacklisting people. That doesn't even make sense to me. You know what I mean? But Q, I would love to get your thoughts on this, where people say that you shouldn't be platforming people and just the general take, which I believe made the U.S. left weak in the first place.
Man, the moment that somebody says the word platforming, you can just stop taking them seriously. Because what does platforming mean? You had a conversation with somebody in a public place. There is no platforming anybody, dude. I mean, you're a YouTuber, right? And that's not any knock. Like, there are dozens. No,
it's just a hobby. I get it. Like, I don't know.
But you have conversations with people about politics. When people start treating YouTube channels or even TV channels and so forth as quote unquote platforms, what they've actually lost is that there's this necessity for communication on points of agreement and points of disagreement. There's no right to speak without an investigation. And how can you properly investigate without speaking to the people that you're talking about? There's no way that I can have a conversation about the ACP, what I think they're doing right, what I think they're doing wrong, where I agree with them, where I disagree with them. I can't do that unless I'm actually talking to people from the ACP. Right?
Exactly.
I've had lengthy conversations with Oz. Like, you know, he and I talk usually like every 3 or 4 weeks or so, and occasionally we have like fairly lengthy conversations, and we talk things out like adults. And listen, that's my brother in Islam, right? So I'm never gonna speak out against the dude or treat him the way that other people have been treating him, partially because he's been one of the most helpful people to me in terms of my reversion to Islam. And those are the things that we agree on, and those are the things that we can actually build from. Our points of agreement are generally in the area of historical materialism, not always so much politics, but we have at least some basic agreements on philosophy. We can always build from there. There's things I've learned from him. There's things that he's learned from me. The issue that I find with a lot of people on the left right now is that they don't actually they learn facts partially from tweet threads, partially from learning books in their book clubs, which is a very good thing. But I don't think that they actually digest and internalize information, especially in the broader context of, for example, if you learn about the Korean War, if you learn about the Chinese century of humiliation, if you learn about the Bolshevik revolution, and so it's good to be able to get all the mile markers and all the facts, but unless you learn the global context in which those events took place, and that people are not gods, revolutionary leaders are not messiahs. Everybody is fallible. Everybody's flawed. Everybody makes mistakes. You can have as many criticisms for Chairman Mao as you have praises of Chairman Mao. But the thing is, people get so affixed into a certain way of thinking and believing that if anything deviates from the particular way that I was taught, it is therefore revisionism. It's therefore wrong. It's therefore reactionary. Yeah. Where it's like how are we supposed to ever move forward if nothing can ever be disagreed with on your end? If I can never have any points of disagreement with you, how can we ever agree on anything? How can we ever move forward on anything? What if you're wrong?
That's a great point, because some people got upset with me because they will say the ACP has a wrong interpretation of communism. And my response to that, I usually didn't reply, but my response to that is like, who gives a fuck? Is that cancelable offense? Like, is it a cancelable offense if you restate in revolution and you come with a different conclusion I do? That's what a lot of people believe. They believe that, they don't have true communism. That is not a cancelable offense. Like Haas.
Then hash out your points of difference.
Yeah, you mentioned Haas. I want to get Eddie. I know you want to chime in. Haas was another person. I had him on before, and that was like one of the biggest backlashes I got. And we had him on. We talked about communism, anti-imperialism. And I'm like, you seem normal to me. Like, Haas is like this madman. He's like a maniac. But I see him like debate like right-wing capitalists. I see him like argue with right-wingers all the time. Haas is just some dude who loves Stalin and like to argue with people. I never understood like the hatred. He seemed like a crazy, obviously like a crazy motherfucker. that he's like a crazy motherfucker who loves to debate capitalists. And I had him on, and we just had a normal conversation. And people pretending I was fucking Hitler for having this guy on. It was unbelievable. Now, with that said, actually, before I ask my question, because we're having a great conversation, but I do want to ask you guys something that concerns me, like a tougher question. But what, Eddie, I saw you put your hand up. Before I do that, anything you want to add on before we continue?
Oh, no, I was just pointing to Mao up there when he was talking about
Oh, okay.
Mao. But I agree 100%. Like, people don't understand necessarily like the historical context of the Russian Revolution, I've noticed, and they think it was just all the workers embraced Marxism and communism, and then they decided to create this utopia.
Like that.
Right? Yeah. It's like, no, the revolution happened objectively. It was just that the communists were ready to hop on board and spearhead it and give it systematicity and coherence, and there were all sorts of disagreements, all sorts of people with questionable morals who were involved in the revolution, and people just have a very utopian, idealistic idea of what a revolution is.
Can I just add? I think a lot of the time when people get into this stuff, they do it because we're in this era where we're all really like hyper alienated and cut off. And social media is this thing that sort of keeps you connected to people while being disconnected at the same time. And there's some, I mean, that's an interesting conversation of its own. But what it does is turns all of these things into less of a just grounded, concrete view of them, and allows you to leave it in the abstract and participate in some sort of subculture rather than real political activity, right? So you need to say these things in order to participate in the subculture. And if you begin viewing, say, the October Revolution in a concrete way, where you're thinking about, these illiterate peasants in the early 20th century, clearly not being perfect human individuals according to liberal standards of the USA in the 21st century, then when you don't have that, rather, it makes the whole thing just a sort of cartoon. It's never a realistic view. And so all of the, criticisms become this less realistic thing. And when you're interested in this, and sorry for the ramble, just for a sort of subculture, genuine education is never taken seriously. Even when you're reading in order to confirm a preconception rather than actually, unlearn the old at the same time you're learning the new. And you end up with a very mechanistic and dogmatic understanding of Lenin or Stalin or Marx or whoever you're reading. So you can't understand, for instance, when what we say communism is, when we say it's not this slogan you heard, it's not this classless, stateless, moneyless society. That's what the context you're putting that in makes it too utopian. We need to understand the theory of the withering of the state concretely. We need to understand the actual real world conditions that can give rise to that.
Very well said. Very well said. There's one thing I want to mention, because we've been having a fun conversation and very cathartic as well, because a lot of the people on the U.S. left has been frustrating. But and this also goes to the point that people who thought I always was friendly at ACP. I had a big argument with a lot of people in the ACP. Called out Jackson before, and we had this big. It was very fun. You guys know I love the funk. I love debating and arguing. We had a big shout out match on Twitter. And when people come with me with critiques of the ACP, 95% of the time, I'm telling you, 95% of the time, it's some shit like, hey man, you see what Jackson said? Now, personally, I don't get I think Jackson has his role. I'm not personally, I don't think about this shit. Not my focus. But your organization get criticized because some shit that Jackson says. They're engaging in the culture war, for example. Now, I personally am very skeptical, and I've had pushback on this. I'm very open to thoughts on this, but I'm very skeptical of movements with centralized leaders, because what happens when the leaders go off the rails? Is there a backup? Is there a way we can maintain integrity within the organization? And what I see the common criticism of ACP, which I want to ask you guys about, is putting Jackson. And then once again, I have nothing against the guy, but putting a guy who says a lot of controversial stuff that can piss a lot of the working class off, which alienates people who will otherwise be down with their platform. You know what I mean? So I want to question you guys about that, about the criticism about Jackson and the central and having him as the figurehead. Because that's most of the time people are like, oh, don't you know that's the Jackson Hinkle party essentially? So what are your guys' response to that?
Yeah, I mean, the ACP was formed undeniably. It would have been impossible without the media personalities that we had and the collectives of Infrared and Midwestern Marx, and then Jackson. I mean, the internet is one of the ways that we were able to reach people and bring together all the people who are, in the party doing work now. So what we decided to do with that, because, it was a question that we had to determine, how much is the party going to exert authority over these media personalities? And we said, as long as you stick within the party line, each media personality or organization will maintain its own autonomy. So, Jackson and I, this was before the party started, but we had a little spat on Twitter once because he made a comment about Cuba. that he later, retracted. But the reason I called him out on that was because I felt like it was against the party line. Like he was maybe, lending credence, not on purpose, just because he, didn't know enough about the situation, but through some of his rhetoric was maybe lending credence to some of the imperialist narratives about Cuba. So that kind of stuff, wouldn't be allowed within the party, going against the party line. But when it comes to some of the other stuff Jackson tweets, like, his association with Alex Jones or other controversial figures, or some of his positions on social issues, we, largely give the different media personalities autonomy. And on some of those positions, I agree, some I don't, but they're non-primary contradictions. The primary contradictions are imperialism and advancing the class struggle, which are two areas where I always agree with Jackson, for the most part. And him appearing as the face of the party isn't because of our internal structure or anything that we've done. It's because of his success in reaching people. It's something that's happened objectively because a lot of people are drawn to Jackson's message and what he's putting out. And what we're realizing as we're now organizing blue collar working class drayage truckers on the East Coast is, a lot of them don't even understand the hate towards Jackson or what it's about, and they don't really give a shit. It's become an obsession of a lot of people on the left, but for people who are working every day, I guess maybe they don't have time to get angry about something like that. But I will say too, like, Jackson is my comrade. Jackson is my homie. I've met him. He's a good person. I would vouch for him. He's not a grifter. He's not a Fed. The things that people say, I know he's controversial on Twitter, but he is such an even-keeled, level-headed person in real life. A lot of people would actually be surprised. And, I want to say I unequivocally stand against a lot of the Fed jacketing that's happened to him and, the smears of him being a white nationalist. It's not true. He is dedicated. He's young and he's still learning, like we all are. But I love that guy.
No, and Q, I want to get your thoughts before I add anything. I want to get you guys on this.
Boy,
Yeah,
sorry,
I
go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Q. Let me know if I step on you and just talk over me. I'm used to it.
No, you go ahead, bro.
So I found it interesting that a lot of people want to, confuse Jackson's social media presence with the party. Right? They're two very different things.
Yeah, and that's why I asked the question. That's why Eddie, and I'm sorry to interrupt, Noah, but that's why Eddie mentioned that he's not like the leader. People come to me like, hey, man, do you know this is the leader? Like, people say this is the leader to the point where I'm like, is he the fucking leader? You see how you can repeat it? I thought, like, that's the common perception, but please continue, Noah.
Right. Well, our executive chairman's Haas, and we voted him into that position for a reason. And Jackson's part of our international department. But a lot of people seem to tell me, like, hey, he's alienating this and he's alienating that. And it's always that he seems to be alienating mostly the people that already hate us, right? Like the anti-communist left. And, maybe he is alienating some people, but I can't think of anyone in the world right now more effective than Jackson at getting regular working class people to change their opinion about the word communism. I mean, he goes on Alex Jones and convinces Alex Jones to bring him up again that actually it was Trotsky doing all the messed up stuff in the Soviet Union and not Stalin. And that's millions of people watching him who are getting their minds changed bit by bit, right? Who are seeing this guy saying, yes, communism is good. Yes, the Communist Party is good. And because he's able to go into those places where none of the people complaining about him would ever stand a chance, he's very effective at doing that. And I see they usually preach to the choir, right? They're like, we are leftists and we say the leftist thing. Well, good. But how is this moving the class struggle forward? We can all play different roles. If you want to be the cheerleader for us, that's great. But Jackson excels at what he does. He was the most viral account on all of Twitter a few months ago. So, like, the way I see it, until they can do better, then there has to be some flaw in the way they're doing things compared to the way he's doing things, and they're just unwilling to admit it usually.
Yeah, Jackson has a lot of success. So who am I to say? But I'll just say my critique, this comes from me, and this is why I called him out for last year, is saying that white people have it worse than black people. Him joining the right wing, supporting George Floyd, and once again, that's something that I got upset a bit because I said that is a strategic blunder because there are a lot of black radicals who will never forgive him for that stuff. You know what I mean? So that hampers the organizing capacity of ACP because the theory that he has that I debated him on the show before, like we need to be appealing to workers' material interests. We shouldn't be appealing to their bigotry. And there was a time where he was trying to appeal to the bigotry of the white working class, and that alienated a lot of people. And that defeats the entire premise of that strategy. The strategy is that we got to show that the white working class that we're not social justice warrior liberals, but in the process of doing that, you alienated people who also be part of the struggle. That's what I Q. I know you want to chime in, and feel free. You guys can respond to that. That's just a critique come from me, and I have no hatred for Jackson, guys. By the way, these are just critiques. I think he's doing a lot of crazy, amazing stuff, but that's just a legitimate critique I have.
I think that's a helpful critique. I think that's a helpful critique too. Like that tweet was from 3 years ago. I don't think Jackson would agree with it anymore. You know, he's professionalized in a lot of ways and refined his rhetoric as he's grown and learned more. And that's the thing. Like, if you never would have had that debate with him, maybe he never would have changed strategy. Because I agree with you. Like, appeal to the material conditions, not the bigotry. That's such a good way to put it. And I wonder if that sunk in with Jackson and was part of the reason.
I haven't followed that closely, so hopefully he did change. You know what I mean? I'm not obsessed with him. Like there's a lot of like obsession. The people like that's why people like, did you see this tweet he said? I'm like, no, I did not. I don't focus on it like that. But Q, I know you've been waiting for a while, so I want to get you in here, and then we can keep the panel open. I know Eddie, you want to leave here soon. Just let me know.
Yeah, I gotta head out. Sorry, but
no,
yeah, let's dismiss Eddie, and then we can continue the conversation with us two for a little bit longer. Cool. Any last word, Eddie, and then Q? Sorry, I'll get you right here. Any last thoughts before you had to leave?
No, thanks for talking, guys. I really wish I could stay. This is the best conversation I've had in a while. I wish we could go for 3 hours, but
he's got to go break fast for Ramadan. That's why he has to go so quick.
You know?
Yeah, thank you, Eddie.
I don't have anything else. acp.us if you're interested. Subscribe to RBN. Follow Q on X. We'll see you later. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, Q. Thank you. No, yeah, a lot of thoughts. Feel free to chime in.
Oh, I mean, I had a very similar critique to what you said. Here's my thing. And I think people who know me know this about me. I on the one hand, I will critique the hell out of intersectional politics, out of like liberal left politics, progressive politics, and so on, because what it often does is elevate what are essentially secondary antagonisms, secondary contradictions, up to the level of primary contradictions, to the point where it's almost as if we can simply not get along together. We can simply not coexist together. For example, intersectionality, I believe, thin slices any segment of the population that you could possibly imagine based on what people perceive to be privileges. I think it is completely fair, and as a matter of fact, I encourage it when people critique intersectional politics. You could have two people who come from the same household, but one person might have male privilege, one person might have pretty privilege, one person might have colorism privilege, one person might have, you can imagine whatever kind of privilege you want and say, you are different from me because you enjoy this kind of privilege and I do not. Therefore, we don't have anything in common. And yet they'll find common bonds with people from classes above them, from the ruling class. So you have two people from the same household that cannot get along. They cannot see eye to eye, but then they have something in common with celebrities. They have something in common with politicians. I think you can also make that critique of the LGBTQ community in the sense that homo-nationalism has been weaponized as a project. And if you can go back and look at like ACT UP, for example, back in the early 2000s, the way that ACT UP and the way that several feminist organizations weaponized identity politics against Iraqi people to argue for the invasion of Iraq, argue for the invasion and the bombing of Afghanistan. They were going into these countries to rescue LGBTQ people. They're going to these countries to rescue women from the hijab or from the niqab or from the burqa. And you saw what the end result of that was. anywhere between 1 to 2 million, depending on whether you believe the Iraqi government or you believe UNICEF. Millions of people dead in Iraq between the Gulf War and the invasion of Iraq in 2003 by the Bush administration. And where were all the people that were rescued? Well, after the invasion happened, everyone stopped giving a shit about them. So I think that there is obviously a critique to be made there. The problem that I have is that I think oftentimes you guys get way too carried away with this culture war shit, and you enjoy kind of beating, like you enjoy hippie punching a little bit too much. You enjoy the homo punching a little bit too much. That is like, and I get that several elements of these left liberal and progressive organizations and the people that follow along with them and put hammer and sickle emojis in their profile, they call themselves communists, but they have the politics of essentially left liberals.
The ruling class, yeah.
Yeah. And you guys get so carried away with clowning on them or trying to make fun of them or trying to antagonize them that you don't realize you're actually just bullying people that from the broader LGBTQ community that I think in many ways, if you take the culture shit out of it, would otherwise agree with you. For example, what's happening with Russia and Ukraine right now? A lot of people early on, like back in 2022, I was one of the few people that got a lot of shit for saying that Russia had every right to roll the tanks over the border. I got so much shit for that.
We had you on too.
That's exactly where Haas was at. Once Jackson got in on talking about communism, that's where he was on that. And that's where many ACP members today, you guys were in the exact same place. And I think there was really just no disagreement among any of us because we understand what NATO is as an organization. And so, and now you have many people from those communities that are saying the exact same stuff that we were saying back in 2022. A lot of those ideological and intellectual gaps have been closed because people see the ruling class and they see imperialism for what it is. But the issue that's stopping a lot of people from just being able to sit down and have a pleasant conversation with you is this, I think, unnecessary antagonism.
Yeah. And Haas even said before the ACP ever formed that he thinks they went too far. They overcorrected for really being attacked is what happened, right? Usually in cases like this, the ACP is just attacked out of nowhere and then defends itself, right? And this was what Haas and the Emperor were doing before I ever met them. I think though, there's one thing that sort of this line of thinking always points me to. It's the need to draw a sharp line between the last period of history and this one, between the sort of ineffectual NGO left, or maybe call it the remnant of a labor aristocracy, or call it, the professional activists, the PMC, whatever, right? All the old sort of controlled opposition type of thing, saying they're communists, but you basically embodying bourgeois ideology.
They're petty bourgeois. Like they say they're communists, but everything about their demeanor, their language, their politics screams at the very most social democrat. But they are essentially they're apparatchiks for the Democratic Party. We know what they are.
And a lot of the time they're rabidly anti-communist when it comes down to the real substance of it. And so when speaking to just regular working class people who usually, when they know of these people, dislike them, there's a need to draw a sharp line between them and this new thing taking shape these days that I'm proud to be a small part of, And so I think that in doing this, I always try to address it in a general way, right? Like I'll use a more inclusive language, like we have this problem, the left has that problem, etc. But because of the hyper individualism within that sort of bourgeois ideology, people take it as a personal insult. And this becomes a sort of ongoing back and forth that never ends. I don't know a good solution to that problem, because when you don't respond and you don't say, well, here's the Marxism, right, or whatever, it begins to get overwhelming. And then you have real infiltrators, real, apparatchiks of the Democrats and other organizations pushing that and blowing it out of proportion and making it look bigger than it is. So it's a really, really tricky question to me and a hard sort of tightrope to walk.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. One thing I would say, and I agree with everything that you're saying right now. I think a lot of it is really just it's maturity. The other part is, here's the other part. I think if you're not familiar, for example, with the politics of the Marxist-Leninist Party in the UK, they say pretty much what it is that people think that the ACP is saying in America. The KKE, the Greek communists, say the exact same stuff. They're you know, they I think can be wildly intolerant of the LGBTQ community. I understand where their logic comes from. Personally, I don't agree with it. But here's the thing, man. I'm not willing to let my feelings get hurt like that. As a matter of fact, most of that stuff just completely washes over me. Like, yeah, I'm part of the LGBT community. I'm part of the Black community myself. But frankly, I can also see where attaching yourself to these identity labels ends up causing you to support bourgeois politics that, like, it's not even that it's just harmful. It causes mass death. Look at the amount of times that we had to go through cyclical discourse online where people were saying that they don't support the Free Palestine movement because Palestinians are anti-Black. And then anybody Black who speaks up for Palestinians is a terrorist, a Hamas supporter. Well, I mean, I'm personally a Hamas supporter, but that's besides the point. But you know that they're anti-Black. They support the killing of Israelis and so on and so all this other bullshit. But they get to hide behind their identity labels, and really what they're doing is they're dressing up genocidal politics inside of their identity politics. Same shit where it comes to homonationalism. They'll do the exact same thing, and Israelis weaponize this. You know, you saw Zionists all throughout the end of 2023 and well into 2024, and they were successful at this, basically saying to any gay person, anybody that had a rainbow in their profile that supported the Free Palestine movement, oh, but you know they'd throw you off a roof, right? Like, just fantasizing about the graphic means by which Palestinians would butcher them if they had the opportunity. So it's on the one hand, I completely understand the critique, but on the other hand, people get so wrapped up into that identity conversation that they end up supporting genocidal politics. They end up supporting imperialist politics, whether it's against China, against Palestine, Iran, Yemen, wherever. They do that shit, and nobody has to counter answer for it.
Yeah, very well said. I hope you guys understand why these conversations are important. Even if you don't have YouTube, have it among your colleagues, people you disagree with, Twitter Spaces. You don't have to have a giant YouTube channel, but we have to open dialogue and conversation, because I really do hope, because I have no ill will toward Jackson, you know what I mean? I really do hope my critique landed. He did. I haven't followed his work for a long time, you know what I mean? So I really do hope that he leaned less on the culture war stuff. Approaching people with your critiques and having these conversations is critical to building a legitimate anti-imperialist, anti-Zionist movement. Doing so by locking each other away and canceling each other is an incoherent strategy. It's an incoherent strategy in a country where true left-wing politics is suppressed and still is in the minority. You know what I mean? So if you have a rabid hate boner for me, for ACP, for whatever any of these groups are doing, if you like, Nick, you fucked up with RBN. Yeah, you fucked up. You're doing a horrible job with the mutual. If you're like, fuck the ACP, I implore you, and I say this on my show all the time, show us how it's done. Stop. If you're a socialist and you're a communist, you're not a part of an organization, you're not building an organization, that is what you should be doing. At some level, if you're too busy, maybe donate to an organization that like-minded. But get involved. There's nothing more frustrating to me than people who just stand on the sidelines and ankle bite people. You know what I mean? So embrace conversations, build and join the org, and get involved, because right now we have a violent empire that's crushing the working class, the likes we have never seen before. They committed a genocide on live stream, attacking international courts. We have a violent, malicious ruling class that trying to start World War III, but you guys are trying to siphon each other into little individual holes and little individual groups. It's an incoherent strategy, and at RBN, we reject this, and I really hope you guys do too. Now, Q and Noah, before I get to super chats, because I see we got quite a few, Any last thoughts? Because I know we talk about a lot. Any last thoughts that's on your mind before I get to super chats? Let's start with Q. Then we go Noah.
Oh, sorry. Could I say one thing?
Because
something you said really resonated with me, Q. Where you said a lot of this is a maturity issue, and I think that's like often something we say reflexively, but don't think very deeply about. Most of these people like involved in this whole thing are young these days, and it's something that just sort of you think about and correct organically over time. But the last thing I want to say on it is people sort of never mind. If you want to go into the super chats, Nick, I don't want to like
we got no rush.
Okay,
like if you guys got time. But
I got another 2 hours actually before I have to do anything. So I'm good.
Feel free.
I want to hear what you have to say, Noah. You go ahead.
Yeah, and then Q can go after you, Noah.
Okay, cool. So I think there is baked into modern bourgeois ideology is this inherent sort of back and forth making mistakes of intersectionality as a theory and sort of subculture, for lack of a better word, for just being gay or being a trans or whatever you want to call it, right? And I think it's really important to understand the difference between the theory and that, because people will say like, oh, well, if you're a Marxist and you don't accept intersectionality as a fundamental premise of how things are,
you shouldn't, as a Marxist, you should not accept intersectionality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's
completely non-dialectical.
Especially when people like, Jordan Peterson and them are saying this is Marxism, you should probably think, okay, this clearly isn't Marxism, right? But when you don't know a lot about it, and this is what you're taught in college, how do you know the difference? And you see, a leader of the Communist Party saying we're not intersectionalists, and you go, wait a minute, I'm gay. Do you hate me? Because that's what the intersectional theory teaches you, I don't know. I think that's a line that needs drawn. That's all.
Q, go ahead.
No, I think to add on your point, you're right. Where do they get these ideas from? From college. But what did Gramsci say about academics? What should communists know about academics? An academic is there to reinforce bourgeois ideas and ideology. It's there to recycle these ideas and feed it to you as just general education. It's just the water that you swim in. You should not be accepting these ideas. Postmodernism and Marxism, they simply do not go together. Marxism is a materialist, structuralist ideology. Intersectionality is postmodern theory. Even critical race theory, and a lot of people are probably going to get pissed off at me for saying this, even critical race theory, it's a postmodern ideology. It's a postmodern theory. Mm-hmm. What postmodernism is interested in is relationships of power, not material power, not what actual structures exist, not what class strata exists and where people fall among them, not what it is that people do, not the power not the power that they're able to amass through their access or ownership of capital, but simply what power emotionally, psychologically can I exercise over you, even if that power is not structurally rooted. And you simply have to get rid of all of these ideas because it's done more to divide the working class than ever united. There's a discourse cycle every fucking week about DoorDash drivers. There's a discourse cycle every other week about celebrities, about Palestinian anti-blackness, about Russians, about the need to support Ukrainian fascists, by the way. I don't believe that Ukrainians are inherently fascist. They're just run by a fascist government. But it's like all of this stuff is basically adding an intellectual patina to the already existing hegemonic structures that you get from news media, that you get from academia, that you get from entertainment media. It's all feeding into the same bullshit. And what these postmodern ideas do is add an intellectual layer to it so that you can try to explain it to other people with very fancy sounding words, but you're just reinforcing the already existing structures. You cannot use these ideas to overthrow capitalism. These ideas support capitalism.
Q, this is why it's great to have you on the show, man. You taking
100%.
taking us to school as always, man. If you guys have anything else you want to add, feel free. I'm gonna get the super chats. We have quite a few. Just let me know how you guys doing on time. I'm gonna try and finish these super chats.
Oh, sorry, no. One last thing I do want to say.
Feel free. Once again,
it's good that you hopped on here because again, like we haven't really had an that length conversation, so it's good to be able to talk to you. But like the one thing that I would say to you, and if Jackson were here, I would say the exact same thing to him. I've said this to Haas, is that if you guys were to be less antagonistic, like I get that people fuck with you guys all the time. I completely understand that, and I get how frustrating it is. If you were just let some of that stuff roll off your backs and address the issues and the facts, rather than having to defend yourself against people and then just like trade insults with them, a lot of the stuff that you actually say, that you were saying back in 2022, before there was even a party, 2023, 2024, people they're getting there now. I've seen Haas point this out, and I agree with him. Absolutely correct. The fact that Jackson can get middle and working class white Americans living in flyover states to question the inordinate amount of money, just the insane amount of money that America spends on the protection of Israel, that they use to enact the genocide of Palestinians, but also to enforce hegemony over Africa and keep them underdeveloped, that they use to gear up for a war with China, to re-subjugate Asian countries. The fact that Jackson is able to get just regular working class white Americans in flyover states to understand this stuff and start repeating it, I think it's a great accomplishment. And I think there's a lot of people who are on the left that I think believed a lot of this bullshit that they were being told early on about, for example, the October 7th operation, that they were told about the Russian invasion, that they're told about so many different things. I even see the way that people reflexively respond to accusations of the genocide of Uyghur people. And again, I got a lot of shit for this back in 2020, 2021, 2022.
Oh yeah, we all did.
I remember.
And you guys were on the exact same page that yes, there were possibly overstepping of Chinese authorities where it came to squashing terrorism in the Xinjiang region, where it came to re-educating people, giving them also vocational opportunities so that they could be trained into the workforce. Like, yeah, sure, it looks very heavy-handed over here in the West, but hey, who the hell are we to criticize? Because look what we do. We sponsor the terrorism that they have to deal with. You guys were saying that stuff early on, and now I see across the board agreement on that. People are coming to exactly where we were several years ago. I think really this is just the last gap to be closed. Is just the culture shit.
I think you have a point. A good point, actually. It's sometimes I think about how much time is just wasted that could be better spent on other things. Doing that, right? Just constantly like, oh, it's someone else lying about this, someone else lying about that, right? Like I said, I want to read the fan fiction they're writing about us one day. But there's sort of, like I said, it's a tightrope walk. Like you can't just have the way social media works, unfortunately, is that you can't just stick to the info like you can on, legacy media, or we could right now in a closed discussion. You got all of these comments and people make 20, 30 accounts sometimes in order to try to push lies. Like we have very dedicated haters.
Yeah, I think. Trust me, I think.
Dedicated their lives. Like I've seen 3 different doxes of myself somehow, but that's all they do. And that's kind of suspicious to me when they have 24/7 to be spending on trying to ruin people who are just right now trying to organize truckers. Like that's actually why one of the reasons I was excited for coming on tonight. I wanted to talk about the drayage trucker organization, right? But we had to talk about all this because it's also important. And when they do that, I think that's part of the point, is wasting our time and energy. And so, I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm open to suggestions. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know a good solution to that.
Yeah, in regard to what Q said, and I agree with a lot you said with letting lie to slide, because I have, and people wonder why I have sympathy for you guys, because I tell you guys, I went through the same thing. You guys seen with the Fred Hampton Jr. shit where a bunch of Karens lied to him. Now we're friends now. We passed up, we met with them because we had a good friend who was close to the chairman who explained to him what happened. Like Fred Hampton Jr. not that online, so he saw a lot of people like, "Hey man, don't lie with these people. They're grifters." These are the same fucking people. I'm telling you guys that attacking the ACP. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And what I would suggest, and I agree with Q, what I learned, and when I was going through this period of being smeared, and this is why I'm very skeptical of just blindly believing smears, which people want me to do. I was like, no, I'd rather have them on and have them explain it because I went through the same fucking thing. So what I did instead of assessing with the people who will smear me, because if you're not on Twitter, you have no idea what I'm talking about. I have 150,000 followers, and there are a lot of people who fucking hate my guts because of it. They think I'm a grifter, and every time I was smeared, what I did instead was put on another banger. They smeared me.
Anybody who takes a
put on another banger. Another banger.
A public stance.
Another banger. I remember in Q. Sorry, I'll get right to you, brother. Go ahead. I remember, and this is clear to my head, in 2002. When I canceled on corporate media, Brianna Joy Gray announced that I would be joining her on the Hill to discuss Venezuela, and I will never forget it. We covered at the time. The reaction that Brianna Joy Gray got was insane. It was all these people saying, "Hey, bro, how dare you fucking platform Nick? What the fuck is his credentials? He don't know fucking shit. He's just some guy who's a grifter," and people was giving Bray a lot of shit for inviting me on. Then what happened? I went on the Hill and I went viral because I destroyed this motherfucker on communism. So this is what I advocate for the ACP to do. Whenever they smear you, just put out a banger, another banger, before it becomes undeniable. But Q, I know you want to chime in. Feel free.
I was gonna say, like, that's that in a way that I see that that's what Jackson did by going to Syed Nasrallah's funeral. Right, for as many people as were mad about that, but I pointed this out on Twitter. It's just amazing the difference that you'll see for people who are reacting to that in the English language and people who are reacting to that in the Arabic language. And I think people in Lebanon generally got, or at least people from the area seem to be getting, the whole point is to start opening Americans' eyes to the lies that they've been fed by their government. Perhaps there is an actual alternative point of view that might not only be agreeable, but actually be correct. I agree with that part of what he's doing. And again, there's obviously the criticisms, but man, listen, if any of these organizations could have done that, they would have done it by now. It's the same thing with you, Nick. You know, when I remember when Brianna invited you on, and I remember how mad people got about that shit. Yeah, remember, you and me were following each other way back before you even had this show. Like, you know, back when you had a smaller account and whatnot, and you were learning things and making mistakes, just like I was, a smaller account and I was making mistakes. All of us are going to fuck up at some point along the way. But I remember people's reaction to you, and it's like, what is wrong with you guys? What is wrong with him going onto a national platform to explain an alternative point of view that against the American propaganda about Venezuela? Why would you not want somebody to go on there and talk about that? You know what I'm saying?
And they said I wasn't qualified, and it's always rooted in classism. Because, I have this thick Midwestern accent, little speech impediment. I'm a college dropout. So they like,
I would like to see this Negro's credentials before he speaks on a national platform.
I'm not bullshitting. That's literally what people were saying. They were saying, pretty. Why would you invite him on? What has he done? Yeah. And this is the gatekeeping. The professional managerial class. What has this guy done? What has Noah done? What the fuck?
High school cafeteria politics is all that is. I don't think I like this guy, and you shouldn't either. So it's
you're just like touching your lanyard the whole time.
Yeah, if you guys know on Twitter, you missing out. But
I straight up look down on.
Go ahead, Noah. And
then sorry, I didn't. I straight up look down on people that are asking for credentials. That's ridiculous, right? He speaks for his work, speaks for itself. And if you don't have the work and all you have is credentials, it says something about you, right? I'm hated by a lot of academics because I don't respect them just because they're academics. Same. And it's the same thing, right? Like, big deal. You paid a bunch of money for a piece of paper. I can read all these books for free. right?
You paid a bunch of money to get people that already agree with ruling class ideology to tell you that you are very smart in reinforcing ruling class ideology. Congratulations, academics.
Right.
Good job. And it's always English majors. You know,
Oh, yeah.
it's sometimes it's social studies majors, but oftentimes it's degrees where it's just like, what are your credentials exactly? What do you know about this shit? I'm not gonna be sitting here being condescended to by a fucking English major. Get out of my face.
This is a great conversation, guys. I'm gonna get to some super chats. I wish I could put more comments up, guys. I wish I could have interacted more because the chat has been pretty based. You know what I mean? I wish I could have interacted more, but let me read some super chats. Feel free. If you guys want to chime in, you can interrupt me. I'm gonna try to get through these as fast as I can. But if you have any thoughts, feel free. I'm gonna go in order. Thank you for the 999 BC. Nick, I am a right-leaning guy, but I have so much respect for you. Appreciate you, brother. It's so nice to see that brainy, power confronting Gore Vidal style left isn't dead. Many blessings. Blessings to you. I appreciate it. Thanks for the 2036. This is a solidarity super chat.
Gorillas and Sons. Y'all are hilarious, man.
They follow us everywhere.
Here's the thing. Here's my problem. This is why I get yelled at so much. Here's the thing. My big problem is I find almost anything forgivable as long as you're funny enough. And I'm sorry, the ACP guys, especially like the infrared base, y'all are so fucking funny that even times where I should be mad at you, I'm like, oh god damn it, they got me. Oh fuck, that was actually really funny.
Yeah, we need more humor on the left. You know what I mean? There are a lot of people getting mad at you guys when you guys obviously trolling. The same happened to me. Like, I'll be shit posting and people I'm like making. Yeah, I'm like, I'm shit posted too, guys. Fuck's sakes.
I've been told like we were horrible revisionists, and people are like, "Look at this tweet," and it's like Haas saying that homeless people are the new landlords, like clearly joking, and they're like taking it so serious.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
The right is correct about you people. You have no sense of humor. Lighten up.
Although, no, sorry, there is one thing I really wanted to be able to say to you, and I sorry that I forgot this earlier while we were actually engaged in serious conversation. You guys have got to actually start talking to Black people that are not academics and are not posters. I mean, like actually get, whether it's recruiting from Black neighborhoods, but you got to get in conversation with the Black working class. Because I'm going to tell you, there is not a whole lot of daylight. Again, aside from some very obvious issues, not really a whole lot of daylight between what it is that you believe and what it is that they believe. I think a lot of it is just misunderstanding due to unfamiliarity. And I think if you had more conversations, you would be just fine. I think there's actually like a wellspring of support that is available inside of Black communities, not just for the ACP, but for communism generally. The problem is people are not going and talking to folks in those neighborhoods. They're not talking to people that work in those types of professions. So you have a whole lot of Black people out there that talk about communism as if it's some sort of European thing, as if it's something that's got nothing to do with Black people whatsoever. That are just, that they're basically, I hate to say this, but they pretty much are just on the Democratic plantation, because that is what they've been raised in. That's the ideology that's sort of saturated Black communities, not just in the United States, but that democratic liberal form of politics, it pervades Black communities globally. And that's something that we need to work on stamping out.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm from a Black neighborhood, and pretty much all my friends growing up would be like, communism, that's some white people shit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and what did Kwame Ture say about that? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I'm gonna continue. Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's like there've been two sort of notions about this that I've seen within the party, and one is I find it weird to specifically go be like, oh, we need to recruit Black people specifically, because it strikes me as too, liberal and paternalistic, and like, where's our tokens, right? And the other one was, well, Black people handle their own organization mostly. We talk with the organizations like we do with RBN, right? And so far, that's been the kind of more predominant strain of thinking.
It's not
My
tokenistic.
thinking is just, it just organically happens.
No,
right?
I
They're
get
just
you.
very young is all it is.
I see what you're saying, but I don't think it's tokenistic to say we need to be talking to people in every community. I say Black community because that's the community that I'm from, and that's what I'm most familiar with, right? So, and I see and I hear the way that Black folks talk about politics. The amount of pushback that I have to give, I could just be like anywhere. I could be with family, I could be out in the community, I could be like at the gym, wherever, and then end up in a political conversation that I didn't plan to be a part of, because again, this ideology it just pervades the communities.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is, it's not from every community. But I discussed this with a few members previously. The thing with Black culture, and this is globally, it's not just in America, Canada, wherever, it's globally. The avenue for cultural hegemony since the 1960s onward, the avenue towards cultural hegemony has almost always traveled through the Black community. So it's not a matter of, hey, we need to get Black people on our side so we can show them off in our pictures. It's like, no, you need access to that cultural capital that is naturally developed inside of Black community, because that's how you communicate a message. That's how you push out a message. Not just a matter of getting people on board the organization. It's also getting these ideas into the Black community as well, because that's what is broadcast globally. My family comes from a very small country, Jamaica, geographically, tiny country, but the amount of cultural output that it has globally, it's just far beyond what we should be capable of. Why? Because Jamaican culture and African cultures generally have the ability to transmit and communicate ideas at such a rapid pace and are received so easily that is something that capitalists have they've already figured this out. Capitalists are already massaging their messages into Black culture. What I'm saying is we need counterculture. We need counter messaging inside of that community. That's why I bring that up.
Yeah, go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, I mean, American culture is very similar, right? Like we often say, like America's a Black nation because its essential character is Black, and you see it in our culture, right? I think that a lot. I don't want to act like we have no Black membership. We do, obviously, right? I wonder though, what a sort of, I don't know, future organizational sort of drive, I guess is the word I'm looking for, towards the Black community would even be able to look like, right? Because a lot of the time you get, what I said at the beginning, right? Like, oh, that communism is some white people shit, right? So in areas like, I'm in Ohio, but I'm in Cleveland, which is basically the only part of Ohio with Black people, right? But what about in Southern Ohio? Like, to go, it seems very like, why wouldn't we go and talk to the organizations already existing rather than, trying to create organizations specifically targeting at the Black community? I don't know. It's a question that I haven't really thought much about because it's mostly just been organic recruitment to me.
Yeah, that was a few of the criticisms I saw of ACP. They said ACP, that was so. I said it many times before. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, your connection spazzed out for a second there.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just repeat what I was saying from the beginning. I seen that criticism of the ACP where they say the ACP is extremely white, and my response to that generally is so.
I actually don't.
And I'm gonna explain what I mean by that. Because I remember at the time I was on Jimmy's show. This is another time where I caused a lot of controversy because people are like, how dare you talk to Jimmy? My number one criticism I get is I talk to people, which is good. I'm glad that's my biggest criticism. But I remember when I went on Jimmy's show the first time, it was during the controversy when Jimmy had the Boogaloo Boy on. They were like, hey, Nick, don't you know Jimmy talked to the Boogaloo Boy? You shouldn't talk to Jimmy because of that. And my response to the agony of all these people who later canceled me was, I don't give a fuck. Because my position is that it is not my job. It is not Q's job. I mean, I do it because I like to. It's extra credit. But it is not inherently our job to try to convince white people to end racism and join our side. I believe that we should be organizing among each other, organizing among the working class, and not begging these motherfuckers. We need to organize among ourselves and then have people like you who want to join us. That is my organizing philosophy, just based on the energy that we can put out, right? But if you're white, why would I be upset that you talk to racist white people trying to bring you on their side? I have a friend, I told you guys about him before, in Kansas City. He is a white guy who I knew, and he has a lot of racist family members. He explained to me. He used to get in drag out fights with these motherfuckers because he's a radical abolitionist, anti-imperialist. You know who I fuck with. He was a down ass white boy, but he was explaining to me how his family's racist as fuck. We live in Missouri, pretty common. You know what I mean? But he fighting with these motherfuckers in the trenches with these motherfuckers. Isn't that better than the white liberal who abdicates that? Who say, "Oh, well, I'm not gonna talk to racist white people. I'm not gonna engage with." No. I believe it's your guy's job.
Yeah, exactly. Who's supposed to do that? Me? You think they're gonna listen to me? Get out of my face.
I'm glad you guys get what I'm saying. That's why generally I'm never mad when Jamie talked to a boo. You guys supposed to talk. That's the racism.
That's what your job is. That's who you're supposed to be talking to, bro.
Yeah.
This is, again, taking it back to intersectionality. This is why I get so mad at that ideology, because it's convinced white women that they are as oppressed as black people. It's convinced white women. It's convinced white women that they should not be talking to racist white men. It's like, that's your dad. That's your granddad. That's your cousin. Go talk to your fucking family. Don't make me have to do it. Get out of my I do it
because I enjoy it.
You want me to do the work for you too? Like,
now one thing I do it because I enjoy doing. I'm trying to win over everyone I can. So I would engage the white working class, but I don't think it's our obligation. Racism is a white community problem, not a black problem. And a lot of people got it twisted. They believe that racism is something that black people got to solve. No, motherfucker, it's something that white people got to solve in their community. Yeah. So why would I get mad if white people organize with white people and bring them on a pro-Hamas position? Because as you guys said before, you guys don't condemn Hamas. 90% of white people out here condemning Hamas. If I got you guys talking to other white people and get them on our side, that's saving me some work. So why are once again, I would never understand why black radicals are upset about that. You guys are supposed to talk to white people. That's my position. And obviously, as you guys are doing right now, organizing.
I see the same white people that over the weekend of October 7th, because remember this happened on the weekend. I see the same, and I know this because I know the usernames. I've got the screenshots and everything. The same ones that were claiming that Hamas was engaging in mass rapes, the same ones that believed that Hamas was beheading babies, the same one that believed that they were like going into the homes and massacring families. The same people who were saying that shit are the same ones who will turn around and get mad at you, me, or anybody else for talking to the wrong white person. It's like, nah, fix yourself. Fix your soul first. Don't worry about who I'm talking to. You need to be talking to them people. And the fact that I got to do it means that you're falling down on the job. You're at the same time, your ideology is so much more dangerous and poisonous than anything that these people are capable of. There's nothing the ACP has said or done that's anywhere near as dangerous as these people's complete willingness and credulousness and spreading those lies about what it was that Palestinian freedom fighters were doing during the Al-Aqsa flood operation. That's why I don't take any of them seriously. That's why when I get yelled at for talking to ACP members or giving credit to them for the good things that they've actually done, I don't give a fuck. You were the same people that fell for that Hasbara bullshit on October 7th. Why should I take you seriously?
Exactly. And last thing I'll say, and we got to get super chats, is I saw that Hassan Piker dissed the ACP, for example. Hassan Piker's had Bernie Sanders on and gave him a tongue bath interview. Bernie Sanders, who's the exact person that Q's talking about. Bernie Sanders is an anti-Palestinian bigot who condemned Palestinian resistance, condemns Hamas, support Israel's right to defend itself. So it's okay for Hassan Piker to talk to a Zionist, but we can't talk to the ACP. You guys, I think that point you were making, Q, right? The hypocrisy to it. But no, I'll give you last thoughts, and we 90 minutes in, so we already do got to get super chats. But I'll give you last little thoughts.
Yeah, I actually have a really interesting short story to tell. But Hassan Piker did more than just diss us on his stream. He collaborated with CNN to put out a hit piece on us.
Oh, Jesus Christ! And you gotta notice Hassan Piker, he attacked our General Strike Summit. And then he later copied our idea. So that's why I'm suspecting him. He's that guy who, you got a giant platform, you attacking activists?
I'm sorry. If this dude has millions of dollars, if he isn't funding a whole bunch of stuff with that money, he's all talk, which is what I think he is. He's not for real. But okay, so regarding the insane notion that it's black people's job to flip racist white people not racist, right? My buddy Kyle, who's also on the executive board of the ACP, went down to Nicaragua a while ago, right? He was in the Merchant Marines. There's a super ultra left guy with him, right? And he's asking these Sandinistas they were talking to, like, hey, I'm here, F America too. Like, how can I help? And the guy's like, go back to your country, convince them the truth about us, and convince them to overthrow your own government. We don't want you down here. Go fix your own people, right? And I look at it that way, right? Like, why would it be on black people to fix racist white people when, one, they ain't gonna listen to you anyway, right? Just off the bat, if they're racist. And two, I'm already right there next to them, right? Like, without being having this history behind me. I do it all the time, and it's effective. It works. Like, I don't understand how people mix these up in their minds. I just don't.
Yeah,
let's
get some super chats. There's still gonna be thought-provoking comments, I'm sure. Let's read through them. We about 9 minutes in. There was a great stream, very cathartic as well. Let me read some super chats. Feel free to chime in if you guys have any thoughts. Thank you for the 199. I don't know who Daniel Tutt is, but he said that ACP is worse than the DNC. I don't know who he is, but whoever said it has the most broken, smooth fucking brain of all time. So the ACP is worse than Zionists who support genocide. Like, get real. Like, this is what the rabid ACP
People
haters
just be saying
believe.
shit to say
They
shit,
rather
man.
organize with liberals instead of ACP. Like, I literally seen ACP haters organize with fucking liberals. Like,
And
how do you
neo-Nazis.
like liberals more than you? How do you like liberals but hate other communists? That's just insane to me. But Q, I think you want to chime in. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry, bro.
No, I was saying people just be saying shit to say shit. Like, you can't even take that stuff seriously. The DNC, the Democratic Party, votes to send arms and money to Israel. They're a political consultancy firm that exists to launder Zionist thought in the progressive American public. That's what they're there for. So that's whatever, man. People just say whatever the fuck comes out of their mouths.
Yeah,
I shouldn't be swearing this much. It's Ramadan. Let me put a clamp on that.
Go ahead.
Here's another thing, though. I think y'all are just. You guys should probably talk to Hassan and settle some of these quarrels.
I would not know anyone. I promise you, Hassan won't talk to me.
You know how many times we've tried and he ignores
I promise you won't, man.
Okay.
I would.
You know me though. I like to see people get along. I like to see, like, so even when people have differences, that we have common points that we can agree on and turn our attention towards the more important items and direct whatever power we have towards taking down the existing structures that oppress the working class. But hey, I get that. There's personality clashes. Not everyone's going to get along.
On your point though, real quick.
Yeah.
Hassan smeared our General Strike Summit. So I
know.
Hey,
I remember.
Listen. I have a point.
Okay.
I responded to his tweet and I got as close to a ratio as you're gonna get to Hassan. Well, I was like, hey, bro, if you have a problem with the General Strike Summit, I would love for you to have you on so you can debate how we can actually talk to organizers. You want to know what the unserious Hassan Piker community said about me? They said, oh, look at Nick trying to grift off Hassan Piker. Look at Nick who want to have a debate with. He's a debate me, bro. He want to debate Hassan Piker. So that's me saying, hey, man, Hassan, I want to have a conversation with you. And I was accused of being a grifter, even though Hassan attacked me first.
People in each chats, there was some stuff that I saw was said in your chat about me that I think would normally make me upset, but it's just like, whatever. You can't control, you can't control what people say.
Yeah, I agree. Trust me.
Yeah.
Oh, he did
but
the same thing.
But you know how I am about this kind of stuff. I try to find points of agreement with people that have generally the same ideology. I get that there's obviously roadblocks there.
And I agree with you.
I think it would be great if all of you guys could put aside your differences and focus on what's important. That's what I think.
Yeah, trust me, I agree with you. And we tried though, but go ahead.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I would love to do that. We've tried to talk to Hassan multiple times. We were super nice. We reached out every single time. And he ignores us. He obviously knows who we are. He's obviously seen this, but he ignored it. And for me, it's a sort of like, I get suspicious, right? When someone's like that, they can't seem to stop talking about us. yet they refuse to speak to us. So it's sort of like, why are you doing it then? Right?
His job is to be the gatekeeper. Well, and as a comment mentioned, he voted for Democrats. His job is to gatekeep. He's not allowed to have people like us on. His job is to define
that kind of stuff
left.
is usually that's kind of stuff is usually chalked up to ego and immaturity. I get it. I completely understand.
All right, let's continue. But Q, I do 100% agree with you though. I'm just saying that's the reality. Let's continue. I think I left off here. Thank you for observing that the majority of the working class around the world are socially conservative. Yeah, these are things I've been learning about recently. Like I've been blessed, and I saw some people get mad at me because I will have Che Boyles, I will have Ozzy Krosak on. I talk to people from all over the world, and then they will say some like socially conservative shit, and people in the comments be upset. I'm like, nigga, I didn't know they thought that shit either. Nigga, I just brought on anti-imperialism, but that's something that the U.S. left had to reconcile with. One thing I know for a fact, because I was talking about this with Claudia, and remember Josana, our old school RBN Brazilian sister? We explained before how, and I always bring this up, I'm sorry to sound like a broken record, but a lot of socialists in Brazil are evangelical. Like they have a very large black evangelical population in Brazil who are also based and radical as fuck. This is like Lula's coalition. And the reason why Lula has to take more of a conservative stance on abortion is because of those people. So my question to the U.S. left, who put a lot of emphasis on the liberal culture war issues, would you cancel the people in the global South who disagree with you on these issues? This is something that I had to reconcile with.
You know they will. That's the problem. They absolutely will. I see what people say about Africans, and Africans generally, not even like specific ones like Nigerians or even like Yoruba or Hausa or whatever. Like they just say this shit about Africans. They say shit about Caribbeans. The amount of stuff that I hear about Jamaicans and the homophobia in Jamaica and so on and so that the homophobia, the misogyny in Islam, that Muslims, like, what they do to their women, like they don't really care. They'll say this stuff about anybody just to avoid looking in the mirror and seeing what it is that their sick societies do to the rest of the world.
You know, like, what?
If you stopped messing with these cultures, I'm trying really hard not to swear here. Stop messing with these people so much, militarily, economically, politically, they would probably grow closer to where you think you are.
Exactly.
As far as your social politics, they would probably get there on their own, but you want to force it on them through imperialism, and that's why they resist it.
You know what? It really reveals something about these liberals, that they may say they're for anti-imperialism, they may say they're communists, they may plaster their entire presence online in hammers and sickles and every slogan you could ever think of. But at the end of the day, their red line is their liberal ideas, their wokeism, whatever you want to call it, because that, when it matters, is when they take a side.
Here's another super chat on this topic. Once again, I told you guys the super chats are always thought provoking. They can lead to conversation themselves. Thanks for the $5 TN. All the officially Marxist countries are more socially conservative than Western conservatives who say communism is about pink hair and pronouns.
Dude, you should see what our Russian friends say. They're like, what is happening in America?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, bro. You know, we need like here's our point of solidarity. If we had like a communist movement against hair dye and septum piercings, we would get so far ahead so much faster. If we mobilized the working class against shitty piercings, we would get so much farther.
Is reading Settlers some white people wish?
I feel like white people reading Settlers, it's ideological BDSM. Like you really enjoy the punishment, don't you? You put on a pair of nipple clamps and just read that shit. I don't know. Something seems kind of off about me. I feel like if you as a white person, if you read Settlers and you identify with it too much, you've probably been fondled with a little bit, but that's just me. This is what I think.
Yeah, and like Zoya said, I see people in the chat say, does RBN support ACP? We support organizing. We support the potential of the working class. It's funny, and mostly I know you guys don't see all my smears, but I get hit with two attacks at the same time, what doesn't make sense. The partisans, the people who like Bernie Sanders, there's a lot of MAGA people who are saying this right now. They're like, Nick hates everybody. Nick hates everybody. Well, what politician do you like, Nick? Why do you critique? But what are yours? They will say that in one breath, and then another breath, they're like, Nick, why are you platforming this person? Why? I had look at the amount of people that we had on. Black Agenda Report. We had countless people, ACP on, we had Q on, we had countless organizers on show. And that's our number one focus, is uplifting people who does organizing, not the bullshit factionalism that we've seen among the U.S. left that I find deeply, and it's proven historically ineffective. But let's continue. I don't want to rant too much on that point. Thank for the $50, Justin B. Why aren't we trying to unite smaller parties? Green Party, PSL, ACP. People got upset because I was having Jill Stein and being close with Shama. People get upset at everything. I'm trying to form this anti-Zionist coalition, and so I'm like, all right, I'll have disagreements because I disagree with Shama on like her messaging about China, for example. But her anti-Zionism is in anti-imperialism. And we have so much more in common. I believe that we should organize among each other and have those conversations. Like I did, I asked Shama about her thoughts about China. That's what we should be doing. And this is a big problem with the left, and I reject this. And anyone who upset with me because of this, I'm more than happy to have your disapproval, because I view this idea of viewing platforming as a bad thing, conversation as a bad thing. I believe that has been extremely detrimental to the U.S. left, this bourgeoisie liberalism that affected people who got hammer and sickle profile pictures. You know what I mean? I can't abide by it. And there were so many people that like, oh my God, RBN, you really let me down. You got the ACP people on. Go fuck yourself. I don't want you. Like, you're a weak link. Like, I don't want people who believe in this liberal bullshit. And then to your point, this is what I'm calling for. I'm calling for people who are like-minded, who are opposed to empire. Let's come together. Let's have an organizing strategy. Let's learn from each other instead of treating politics like high school, which a lot of people do. But let me continue to comment. I didn't finish it. Why aren't we trying to unite smaller parties, Green Parties, PSL, ACP, all under one banner like the Republican? And once again, and this directly to, I see PSL people that are like, why the fuck you talking to ACP? Why the fuck aren't you? I have a lot of PSL people I follow. I talk to PSL people, and there were some of those people upset with me because I talk. Why the fuck aren't you talking to ACP? So I see PSL. You know what I mean? We need to get them all under one banner, like the Republican Party did in 1860. When they eradicated the Whig Party, we need solidarity for the left, not another new small party. I agree. And like I said, I believe that everyone should, like, especially if you're a socialist, anti-imperialist, if you can create an organization, support one, become a member of one. And then we come together with the organizations for a unified front. That's my vision, right? We have a few more, a lot of support to that. I appreciate it. This is, once again, as you guys see, this is a conversation that the people obviously wanted to see. And there was a very coordinated effort by a lot of shady motherfuckers to prevent this from happening. Even though we had you guys on before.
And by the way,
you guys didn't watch the show. They didn't know we had you on before. But go ahead, Noah.
Nick, speaking of that, I want to say, because just like you defend us in talking to us, we've done that with you.
Yes,
right? Like, it's wild how people just hate people coming together, because that's the only way we win. It is.
Yep. Yeah, very well said. I need to cut my rant short. We're getting long. Very thought-provoking conversation, to say the least. Big shout out to our friend Wade. Thank you for giving us a chance to build bridges. I've been watching RBN since 2020. It's a relief to get the opportunity to engage in open dialogue with each other. Absolutely well said. Thank you, Wade. Why do people hate Iran's
con pollo so much? Who hates arroz con pollo? What is this person talking about?
ACP.
Oh,
I see now.
I was like, wait a second. What? Who actually hates? Okay.
Are you for real? I'm the only one that picked up on that.
I did, man. Whatever.
It's been a long stream.
I've been fasting all day. All right. I'm starved. I will not be able to get any subtext whatsoever.
Yeah. We almost done, guys. I appreciate you guys' time. Let's continue to wrap this up. I think for $5, Brandon, political parties that don't platform other ideologies are called silos. Every party should want to distinguish themselves from alternative ideologies. Common sense, which some people don't have. Thank you for $20, NRJ. This unity is what worries the feds, ACP and RBN. Once again, the same with the Green Party, even though I have criticism with them. The same with Shama Sawant. The same with everyone that RBN organized with. If you want to show up and you want to organize with the just cause of anti-imperialism, the just cause of advocating for the working class, you will always have a spot at RBN. Now, ask yourself, and the names don't have to be said, but think about the people who have us blacklisted. Think about the people who don't give a fuck about reaching out. These are people who clearly don't have our interests in heart. So why shouldn't we organize among the people who are clearly driven by the same goddamn goal? Which is common sense, but let's continue. Ollie's a real one. Yeah, Q is a friend of RBN. Well, I knew Q even before RBN on that shit. You know what I mean? Me and Q shit posting, pissing off the liberals on Twitter. Yeah, we homies.
Hey.
They for $10, Jesus.
That's what I do.
Been waiting for this conversation. The future belongs to the working class. ACP, RBN. Well said. Once again, you guys notice, and this on that doesn't escape me. It's always the DSA motherfuckers who are smear merchants against RBN. It's always the ACP that are sharing our project, promoting our project. Then they wonder why we had them on, why we talk to these people. The same people who was upset that I had Jimmy Dore on and vice versa never fucking shared one RBN mutual aid event. Jimmy shared the library. He donated to the library. Jimmy helped us promote mutual aid on his show, but they wanted me to hate Jimmy. The same people who never lifted a damn finger to share a single goddamn thing about RBN mutual aid. And I have critiques of Jimmy, but at least he brought us on to share our mutual aid. You guys, like the people who actually promote activism, people who don't do shit want us to hate each other. That just don't make sense to me.
Say, boy, I don't think I like them people use associating with, boy. You know what we do to people like you, association with people like them? we used to strap you to trees and whip your Negro ass, associated with the wrong folk, raising rabble and causing trouble. Like, hey, man, get out of here. Who do you think you are?
I love that's a powerful accent, man. that's a powerful impression. You can English, right?
Nick was like, was he just taken over by the spirit of a Confederate? I used to live in South Florida. That's what it is. Yeah.
All right, let's continue. We're almost done. I know this stream is kind of breaking down the end, guys, but this is super chats time. Everyone needs to read Mao Zedong's Combat Liberalism. Very well said.
Absolutely.
The amount of theory is never ending. I'm still scratching the surface myself, man. That's why I always come on RBN and I'll just share you guys some shit I just read. Like it's a very complicated science. And it's a privilege to continue to be on the journey of learning more, so you can provide better for the working class. They were $10, Chris. The ones who complain about who you platform refuse to fund or build organizations. If I or we didn't talk to those different from us, apps like Red Note or Mutual Aid would be dead. Get out of the comfort zone. We're almost done. I'm glad that obviously the RBN community have common sense to understand this. I see these are a few comments I put on the screen before. A big shout out to CBB. Abboy Z, yeah, I think we caught up. Let me go to the bottom. RBN, and ACP are the future of the U.S. left. I surely fucking hope so, because right now, once again, it's the. I don't call out. I guess I call out his time because I'm jealous. I will admit it. I will come out. Other people do not.
As if a million soy lips cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced. My God, this super chat caused at least 5 heart attacks.
All I'm saying is I hope this is true, because the past is really abysmal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I go after Hassan because he is the most influential voice. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We need us to be that if we want to be successful, because the current status quo of who is listened to among the U.S. left has led us off a cliff. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm jealous in the sense that we could be doing way better than what we have. When you look at the extremely – anyway, I need to cut down on rants, but the extremely liberal bread to voices is what led the United States left off the cliff in the first place, and why I even decided to start YouTube, because I saw these social democrats saying a bunch of liberal bullshit all the time. You know what I mean? So I hope you're right, out of jealousy, because we need an actual intellectual truly motivated working class movement. Anyway, let's move on. Leftists are sheltered and self-hating. Makes no sense. And I think we officially caught up here. I see these super chats. Let me go to the bottom. I saw a few more came in. Q's a real voice. And this is what terrifies people. This is why some people was upset to see this happen, because we have more in common than we had differences. So people did not want to see me talk to ACP because they didn't want me to realize that. And they think I'm dumb.
Every time I say that, I get yelled at, I get called names, I get lied on, all kinds of shit. But the problem is, like, once you get past the social media discourse, and this is, by the way, like, I'm not going to be on Twitter for very much longer. Probably like by the end of March, I'll be wrapping up my participation there. But I think this is what it all comes down to. On a platform like Twitter, anybody can just say whatever and then drown out actual important messages. But when you have a place like this where we can actually sit down and have a conversation as adults, that's what people actually fear, because they can't engage other people this way. All they can do is sit down. I'm not going to say they're in the grandma's basement, because a lot of these people are actual grown adults, which makes it even more sad.
Even worse.
But that's all they can do is sit down and just talk mess from behind the screen, but they can't actually have an adult conversation.
Yeah, very well. Go ahead, Noah, and we can wrap up after your thought, because that was a lot of super chat. Go ahead, Noah.
I do a call-in show every Monday, and I'm always saying, you got a problem, I invite you on. Like, I'll give you priority over everybody else. Come and explain exactly what your problem is. 2 people in the entire history of the call-in show have actually done that, and one just started screaming like random insults at me by the end of it.
Yeah. I know that as well. Which is why I'm like, I saw people who were super critical of the ACP, and then you guys like, hey, come on, let's have a conversation. Like, I don't debate you. There's no one, like, what kind of bitch ass shit is that? There is no one I have ever criticized on RBN, the history of RBN, that I will not sit down and have a debate with. If you have time to call out someone, you should have time to have a conversation. I've seen people do this all the time, which is why I was willing to have you guys on, because I had critiques of MAGA communism, had critiques of Jackson Nickel. The same way I invited Jackson Nickel on, because he saw I popped up on him one time, and he came on. We talked about disagreement. You know what I mean? That is what adults, and that's what a serious left needs to do, which we did today for 2 hours. Once again, I wish I could have read more like non-super chats as well. It was a very long conversation. I saw you guys left a lot of good comments. I appreciate you guys for doing that. And I appreciate Q. I'm going to hard wrap this show. Make sure you guys follow Q, Nova Ali on Twitter. Make sure you guys check out Midwestern Marks. That way you can find Noah in the ACP. Follow him on Twitter as well. I believe that's your ad on Twitter that you guys both have on there. Tomorrow, I have Gorilla Pod on. Today was a lot of discussion about left organizing and what's going on in ACP. But you guys know my main thing now I'm focused on right now is especially covering the madness. Like, we definitely going to cover Trump ending free speech, weapon. Like, we're still going to get back to the stories. It was a very needed roundtable left conversation. But Gorilla Pod joined tomorrow. They've been on the show before. They're very based. We're going to be discussing all the crazy shit that's going on between Trump, Zelensky, Ukraine, Israel. We're going to get back to the news tomorrow. You guys know we producing banger after banger.
Don't forget to talk about the Drayage Drivers Association. Don't forget to talk about them truckers, bro.
Yeah, we definitely gotta have you guys back on and talk about.
Yeah. Oh, I'm like firing on all trucker cylinders right now.
Yeah, let's end with that thought. Jody Brar is coming back on Monday. Counterpoint China on Tuesday, bro. Then we got Post Duopoly on the 12th. So we got a lot of fucking banger shows coming up over the next like week and a half. Post Duopoly, Gorilla Pod, Jody Brar coming back. We got a lot going on. But Noah, we want to shout out the trucker protest, because let's end on that thought.
Yeah, absolutely. So
share
the whole thing with organizing the truckers right now, the UDDA, which is the United Drayage Drivers Association, which is what we're helping organize. And the director of personnel for the party, Kyle Pettis, is going to be meeting with the Teamsters to coordinate on how to get the drayage drivers into the Teamsters Union. That's where we're at in the process now. We've been helping them organize like right on the ground from Jump Street. Basically what's happening there is they are misclassified as 1099 independent contractors. So the bosses are able to screw them over every single possible way. Like, they're not even allowed to inquire basically how their pay is calculated. It's wild. And the reason this matters, that they're misclassified as independent contractors, is because They're actually not. They're not allowed to go work for any other contractor at the port. They're bound to this one contractor, and they're not allowed to negotiate. So we're getting together with them. We're helping fight and create this organization. Like I said, we're going to be meeting with the Teamsters. A lot of people tell us, like, oh, when you go to, blue collar working class people, they don't want anything to do with communism. They're all anti-communist. But you can look right on our social media. They're posting ACP pamphlets. They're all about it. What really matters is that we're there, we're putting in the work, and we're helping. We're actually fighting alongside them. That's all that really matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, especially in this era now, guys, where there are liberals who are very upset with the collapse of the Democratic Party. MAGA working class will be inevitably upset with Trump. Now we need a mobilization of a working class movement more than ever to pick up these people who are going to look for a direction. So if you listen to these shows and you enjoy these shows, and this is what I always say, make sure you get organized, you get involved. We have fun and we laugh on these shows, but it's very important to get involved and start organizing your community. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys follow Q, Noble Q, Ali, and Noah. Very fun conversation. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Banger after banger. See you guys.